Welcome to the Blackhawks Breakaway Podcast, brought to you by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. Find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. With Charlie Roumeliotis, I am Pat Boyle. Blackhawks complete a season-long 6-game road trip covering 4,300 miles in 12 days. And they close it out in style with wins against Vancouver, Calgary, and then Detroit on Sunday afternoon, a 5-1 final. And they go 3-2-1 on the 6-game road trip. Not too bad at all, Charlie.
Not too bad at all. And a night and day difference, the first half versus the second half, where they go 0-2-1 in the first 3 games, have a -6 goal differential in those 3 games, and then they bounce back with a 3-0 record, plus 11 goal differential in those final 3 games. And Pat, we talked about this in the last podcast after the 0-2-1 start, how much of a toll that just being on the ice probably took on the Blackhawks after they were on the ice for 8 of 9 days and 5 straight prior to the off day going into the Vancouver game. All 3 of the Blackhawks wins on the second half of the trip came after there was an off day the day before. So it was off day, game, win, off day, game, win, off day, game, win, back to Chicago. And so I really do think that the rest played a factor on the second half of the trip. And, we'll get into some of the, the nitty gritty details, but I thought it was a really nice bounce back performance on the second half of the trip as opposed to the first.
What really impressed me about Sunday was the body clock factor. The fact that you'd spent 2 weeks on the road, primarily in Mountain and Pacific time, playing at 8, 9, 10 o'clock body time, and then you have to close things out in the Eastern time zone and play at 12 noon, 9 hours before you'd been playing the last 5 games. That's significant. And, Detroit is there waiting. They've played a game in their barn on Friday night. They're adjusted. They're ready to go. Hawks travel from Calgary to Detroit on Saturday on the off day, and then tee it up at 1 o'clock local time, 12 noon Chicago time. I was impressed with dealing with that aspect of the travel.
100%. And usually on Sunday, so it was a 1 o'clock Eastern start, noon Central. Usually the day before, when you have an afternoon game, you want to try to get a practice in because there's no morning skate. So the last time the Hawks were on the ice was, the game Friday prior night. On Friday night, and they still were able. Again, it wasn't perfect. You look at some of the numbers against Detroit on Sunday, and the shot attempts were like 84 to 37 or whatever they were. And so it wasn't perfect by any means, but it was just an overall solid effort where the Hawks just dominated for stretches. The special teams was great. The goaltending was great. Bedard and Bertuzzi continues, to shine. And so it was just a really successful road trip as a whole.
Let's talk about that power play and special teams. The power play went 3 for 3 in Detroit, 3 goals on 3 shots. The PK went a perfect 5 for 5 and killed off a double minor to Bertuzzi in the third period, carried over into the third period. But I thought the adjustment of putting Levshunov as the quarterback on power play 1, moving Burakovsky to the left flank, Bedard to the right flank, Bertuzzi net front. We had some different players because of injuries filtering into the bumper roll, but I thought that in the first part of this road trip, I would have said the special teams didn't play a factor in favor of the Blackhawks. Those last 3, I thought it did. And how about this stat? The Hawks are 7-1-2 when they score 1 power play goal. 7-1-2.
And the Hawks remain, I think every single one of their wins this season has come when the Blackhawks have scored the first goal as well. And they don't have a single win when they haven't scored the first goal. And so you get Connor Bedard scoring 59 seconds into the game and the Hawks are already off to the races. And you mentioned the two big changes for me for the power play, when they started clicking, was Bedard getting moved to the right flank, because we saw it again, like that toe drag release. I mean, John Gibson, tries to snap his shoulder up to get it, and he, like, the puck just grazes his his padding on the top and just goes top shelf. And so that has been really successful. And Artyom Levshunov getting moved to the top power play unit. I know it started really dicey the first 10 seconds. And I think it was in Vancouver when they made the change, because that drop back pass led to an on-man rush, but they ended up going the other way and they scored. And so Levshunov on that first unit, I think, has been a real game changer too so far.
Yeah, he's among the league leaders in rookies in assists. He continues to look comfortable out there. Again, you point to that play in Van where he drops it back and almost results in a goal. I thought that the Bertuzzi effect on the back post is it's an interesting play, because we saw it very successful last year. There were two stints where Bertuzzi had a bulk of his 20 goals. He had them in like a 2-week span and another 2-week span in the season. And I would say maybe 5 to 6, maybe 7 of them were the backdoor genuflect, go down on one knee, a la Sidney Crosby, and bunt it in with your body, your skate, the stick, what have you. We have seen that in the last few games as well, continuing on this year. But we also see the effect it has on the penalty kill. So on Bedard's goal, first goal in Detroit, JT Compher sags off Bedard and gives him some space as he makes his way, towards the net. And the PK for Detroit also was shading towards Bertuzzi on the back post. That gave time and space to Bedard, and then he fires it over Gibson's left shoulder. Fast forward to the third goal, and Bertuzzi goes to the other side of the net. PK challenges Bedard and Levshunov at the top. Bedard finds Bertuzzi down low, and he squeaks one by Gibson at about 3 miles an hour, 5-hole. But, you can see how the Bertuzzi effect is affecting the way the PK sets up. They're either shading his way or they aren't. They made that adjustment, and the Hawks are in this chess match adjusting themselves.
That's a great point, because it is backing off some of the penalty killers to take away that seam from Bedard to Bertuzzi wherever the pass is happening from. When Connor was on the left flank at the beginning of the season, Bertuzzi was posted up on the other side of the post to try to, tap it in. But then when Connor gets moved to the right flank, then Bertuzzi goes to the left side, and actually that is an easier, not easier, but it's more suitable for him to tap it in, because he's on his forehand and all he has to do is guide it into the net, versus if he's on the right side, Bertuzzi kind of has to corral it first, or kind of really use his leg to tap it in. So it's been such an effective play. And I think he was asked about it after the game, Bertuzzi, like, why don't more guys do that and post up, do it the way you have? And he's like, well, probably because my back hurts, because you take a lot of punishment when you're in that area. And so and the way he chokes up on his stick, the way he gets down on one leg, I mean, he has the athletic ability to do it. But then for Connor and Bertuzzi to just be on that same wavelength, I mean, it's become a real weapon for the Blackhawks.
And, sometimes I'm trying to remember which game it was, where Bedard is firing a laser, like his pinpoint accuracy, just like he's picking a corner when he's shooting at the net, he's picking mid shin pad on Bertuzzi and firing it to get through sticks and traffic in front. And then it perfectly caroms off of Bertuzzi, off his knee, off his shin pad to the back of the net. So it's like you're seeing his skill and the timing of this play and the idiosyncrasies of this play. It's not just as simple as going to the to the back post. And also, I love the way Bertuzzi, it's not like he just goes and sets up there. He works below the goal line, trying to find the soft spot and, keep the PK at bay, so to speak, and then, finds his way to the back door and then, creates the opportunity. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. It's not just as simple as setting up shop on one side of the goal or the other and getting in that position. There's lots that leads up to it.
Right. He's not like Dustin Byfuglien just standing in front of the goalie and just, hey, just shoot it on net and I'll guard the eyes of the goaltenders. It's like he's waiting for the play to develop so that he can pop into that spot just at the right time. And there are some times where he does just kind of post up there and he's like already down on one knee, almost like, a basketball center that's like posting up the defender, like, hey, just give it to me now and I'll do the work. But it's been beautiful to watch. And I imagine other teams are starting to take notice that that's a thing. But, man, you take away that, then it's going to open up something else, whether it's point shots, cross seam from one face-off circle to the other. It's been interesting the way that it's been working for Chicago.
All right, let's get into it. I mean, I can't believe we've gone 10 or 11 minutes and really haven't given this guy his due. Connor Bedard has been nothing short of spectacular this season. He's on an 8-game point streak. Over those 8 games, he's got 18 points. He has 25 points on the season. At the end of the game in Detroit, he was your league leader in scoring, only to have Nathan McKinnon on Sunday night put 5 on the score sheet, and now he leads Bedard by 4. But nonetheless, Connor Bedard, he never asked for the generational label, but he is playing to that label right now. This is the best we've seen him play, the most consistent we have seen him play in all facets, in passing, in puck carrying, in hounding pucks defensively, edge work, you name it, he has it. Shots always there. It has been so much fun to watch 98. And I hope people that are late to the Bedard party, heed this notice that he is must-see TV in Chicago. You better get that CHSN app and you better start, watching this because it's a special display of athleticism and it's just been great.
It's been so fun to watch. And during his 8-game point streak, I think you mentioned he has 18 points over that stretch. I think 10 of them are assists. All 10 of his assists are primaries. I mean, these aren't like he's backdooring some of these. He is driving offensive play for the Blackhawks. And how about him following up? I'll maybe even include the 4-point game in Calgary where Frank Nazar leaves the game early. That's Chicago's 1-2 punch, Bedard Nazar. Nazar leaves in the first period. Connor still has a 4-point night. Then he follows that up with a 3-point performance in Detroit without Frank Nazar. I mean, how many times last year did we say, if you shut down Connor Bedard, you're likely going to win the hockey game? And this year, Connor has strapped the team onto his shoulders in games where maybe there is no Jason Dickinson or Ilya Mikheyev or all these injuries that Chicago has dealt with. Connor has just been like, no, just hop on my shoulders and, follow me. And so it's been so fun to watch, Pat. And I was thinking to our preseason predictions of what we were thinking about. I thought Bedard being a point per game player at 82 points, a 15-point increase in the 35 goal range. I thought that was okay. I think that's a significant step. He's on pace for 120 plus points right now. I mean, I almost feel embarrassed that I kept the bar so low because he has completely shattered what I thought this season was going to be for him.
I thought I checked in at 88 or 89 points and I thought over a point per game pace. And considering, where he was the first 2 years and what was coming back to this team, I didn't see, the chemistry with Burakovsky rounding into form as quickly as it has. I thought I was being a little ambitious, to be quite honest with
Yeah.
you. And now it looks like, well, we'll see. I mean, the season is short. I love the way he's really downplaying everything. He's asked in every city he goes to and in every practice and pregame setting at the United Center about what's different. You're a different player. And he continually says, hey, it's early, yeah, we're off to a good start. He talks about the other night in Calgary. First thing he was talking about was Spencer Knight, and rightfully so. Spencer Knight was fantastic, but he is deflecting any of the attention, any of the adjustments that he has made to his game in the summer. He kind of glosses over it, doesn't want to spend a lot of time on it, doesn't want to make it about him. But I'm sorry, it is about him. The goal he had in Calgary after the 3 primary assists, where he steals the puck and then goes in and puts on a deke show that was just beautiful. That to me kind of encompasses what he has brought to the table, how his game has rounded, how playing away from the puck has become very important, how that tenacious bite to his game. It's not in spurts. It's not in this shift, take a couple off, that shift. It's not every other game. It's every shift, every game. I'm trying to think of a transformation that I have seen in my time of covering this league and this team specifically. And Charlie, I'm racking my brain. I can't remember the time I saw a player take such a quantum leap in their development. And, you see guys get on heaters, but you rarely see them adapt their game and change their game. He has done that in one short offseason.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch. And I know he personally is downplaying it, but internally, I think he knows like the work that I put in this summer, absolutely, when you're seeing the fruits of that, not just, oh, okay, I'm feeling better. My numbers are like, this is such a drastic improvement from what we saw last year. The only thing I can really compare it to is from a Chicago perspective. And it's not apples to apples, because I was thinking about when Patrick Kane was trying to revive in his 30s when he went to Ian Mack, and he ended up, his points were started to go on the decline. Then he goes to Ian Mack, he drops weight, gets, faster, and he turns in like an MVP type season, and that significant point increase. But that was at the stage where Kane was trying to, how can he become a better player in the second half of his career? This early on, like from year 2 to year 3, I can't remember a jump. I know Nathan McKinnon, it took him like 4 or 5 years to finally get to that MVP type level. But with Connor Bedard, the way he's done it over a summer has been just incredible. And it seems like I leave every game, like you can look at some of the underlying numbers, and it's not like Bedard was like, his line wasn't great. He ended up lucking into a couple of points. Like it's like, oh, he had 4 points and his line was the best line, even in the shifts where he wasn't producing offense. Like he just pops on your TV screen. And so it's been a joy to watch. Do I expect him to maintain this level? Maybe the production wise is going to come back down to earth just a little bit, but I think his process is so encouraging that I don't expect that to drop off. Like I expect the chances to continue to come.
Yeah, I think too, like we had heard that last year there were times where, he didn't have his legs and he was unable to play at the level he wanted to play just because of fatigue or whatever it may be. And I think you see it with players so far this season. You'll see, we talked about it at in the Seattle game where we were like, boy, they look tired. They'd been on the ice 5 straight days. I think they had been on 7 of 8, with the one day being an off day traveling to Winnipeg. And you see some players that you're like, you know what? He doesn't have it tonight, or he doesn't have it in the first period. I don't remember saying that this year about Bedard. I think he has had it in all 16 games. I'm wondering if his, just 2 years of knowledge of like, okay, I can't be the last one on the ice at Fifth Third Arena. I should take this optional skate. I do need to rest up on this off day or what have you to maintain the level of play that I'm at. And I'm wondering if, like, what a great source of help that is to guys like Nazar and other young players who are in their first full year in the National Hockey League. Like, hey, just caution here. Like, in December, I was spent. You're used to playing, a collegiate schedule, which is basically 2 games a week. Then you go to the AHL and you start playing 2 to 3 games a week. And then you come to the National Hockey League and you're playing sometimes 4 games a week at the highest level. So there's adjustments that you need to make. I think Bedard has clearly made them. And I think that's a source of great help to a younger team to say, and again, he's leading by example. Like they're following his lead. How about the faceoff dot? You take away the opening road trip, Charlie, and you look at the last 12 games, he is right around 50% or north of 50%. I mean, he had I think 71% faceoff percentage the other night. Like in Detroit, he was 55%. He's winning defensive zone draws. The confidence that Jeff Blashill has bestowed on him out of the gates, like early on in the season, he was taking important draws in the defensive zone. Almost giving him this opportunity to seize and gain confidence, and 98 has.
Yeah. You mentioned Connor not always being the last one off the ice at morning skates or practices. And that's something that I think Bedard has gotten really good at as far as working smarter. The last couple of years, I mean, he was every practice, he was the last one off the ice. Like it, I don't even remember a practice.
20 minutes at times.
Oh, by a long shot. Like there would be guys would be halfway home and Connor would still be on the ice because he's still working on his technique. And
remember the joke, like you're gonna have to hide his like he was going over on off days, like on a Sunday on an off day. When everybody was watching the NFL or whatever, like they're like, he was going to Fifth Third Arena.
And even after practices, he would have his own shooting room in outside of Fifth or inside Fifth Third Arena, but it's like off the ice, and he would just be in there ripping shots. And I think 2 things Connor has gotten better off the ice is making sure that he's managing how much time he is on the ice. So again, minimizing his practice time, morning skates, but also off the ice. I think he's done a better job of not taking everything home with him. And when he's away from the rink, disconnecting from the rink, hanging out with your teammates, doing fun things to just get your mind off the game. So that way, when you do return to the rink, you're coming at it feeling really fresh. Like Jonathan Toews would say this all the time. He would say this at the end of every season. He's like, I wanted to get so far away from the game so that way when I returned for a season, I came back missing it and wanting to be around. Kane was obviously wired differently. The more time he spent on the ice, the more sharp he felt. So he was kind of like an outlier. But I think Bedard is somewhere in the middle where he needs to be on the ice a lot, but not on the ice constantly, where he's just not effective when he's on the ice over the course of an 82-game season because his body is starting to break down. So I think he's done a beautiful job this year of making sure that he's finding the right balance between both.
I also think the addition of Andre Burakovsky has been really, really positive for Connor. He's a transporter of the puck that can take some of that responsibility off of Bedard's plate and at times allow Connor to find open space and receive the puck and make a play that way. Also, on entries on the power play, I think Burakovsky has helped as far as entering the zone with speed. What have you seen the Burakovsky effect?
100%. I've been I knew that Burakovsky coming into this season, like you always heard that he has more speed to his game than he leads on because you see the size and you think, okay, more of a power forward, maybe good and tight. But boy, that guy can skate for a big man. And I think the entries you mentioned that he's made a real difference, but I think an underrated asset for Burakovsky is the way that he thinks the game. And I think that's why him and Connor have been working so well, is because they're being able to feed off of each other. They know where they're going to be positionally. And it's interesting because when I watched training camp in the preseason, Pat, that was maybe the quietest line, Bedard Burakovsky. Like they had a really hard time getting going in the preseason. So I was kind of scratching my head like, all right, this might take a while to rev up. But it seems like that has been the best line, most consistent line over the course of the season. It doesn't matter who that third winger is, whether it's Ryan Green or whoever it might be, Mikheyev, Donato. It's the Bedard and Burakovsky duo that has been so strong that they just play so well off of each other because they have a very similar hockey IQ.
All right, let's play this out a little bit. Macklin Celebrini is off to a fantastic start. You look at the points leaders, it's McKinnon, it's Celebrini, it's Bedard, it's Eichel, it's a who's who. We talked on this podcast about the chances of Connor making Team Canada, and we thought that Celebrini had the upper hand at that 14th spot, namely because of his ability to play a 200-foot game, and it helps that his size is a little bigger than Connor, and he'd been putting up ridiculous numbers. So then Connor adds the 200-foot game to his repertoire and excels in hounding pucks and puck battles won, and improves dramatically at the face-off circle and puts up points that mirror what Celebrini is doing. Could you see a scenario, and again, we don't know injury-wise how this will play out, that at the end of the day, if these two are mano-a-mano, back and forth among the top five in scoring for the first 3 months of the season, we get to December and January, and all of a sudden there's this momentum that, not only for the good of the game to have two young stars in it, but for the good of Team Canada to have two players that are going to foreseeably be a part of that team for the foreseeable future, to give them that experience. Could you see a scenario where Team Canada takes both of those players?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I know, when are the rosters actually due? Is it mid-December or?
No, I think it's a little later than that. I think it's closer to January than you think. Maybe there's a stage. We've already had a handful of players that have been named, and then I don't know if it's in stages, because you don't want to name somebody December 20th and then have them go on the shelf, in late December, and they're unable to play in February.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in January, pretty close to the deadline.
Okay. So here, and I badly want to make a strong case for Connor Bedard to be on Team Canada's roster, but here's why I still think it might be an uphill battle for him. Because he is an offensive first player, big time point scorer, playmaker, elite shot, number one power play guy. Team Canada has a ton of those players. They have McDavid, they have McKinnon, they have Crosby, Sam Reinhart. All of those players are going to be playing top six roles. Mitch Marner, he's going to be in the top six role. So unless there are injuries to the top six where Team Canada is looking for offensive players on their power play, then I think Bedard is going to make a strong case. But it sounds like Team Canada is really wrestling with who their bottom six is going to be, whether they bring guys like Brandon Hagel and Nick Suzuki, Macklin Celebrini, those guys that can match up against the other teams or countries' top opponents and be more in a shutdown role and play some penalty kill minutes. And so that's why I think Celebrini is getting more of the love than Bedard in that area. I think over time, over the next couple of years, once Mitch Marner gets on the backside of 30, and once Crosby is gone, they need players to play in their top six. I think that's where a guy like Connor Bedard is going to slide into a role, probably get pushed to the wing and drive offense, similar to how Patrick Kane does from the wing for Team USA when he was playing internationally. But up the middle, and we're talking about top six players. Like Bedard is a top six player. He's not a guy that you want to slide into your third or fourth line and play in a checking role. So that's where it's going to be difficult for Bedard, and why I think Celebrini might have the edge, not necessarily because Celebrini is the better player. I just think he brings something different for Team Canada that Bedard doesn't necessarily bring, or that Team Canada is looking for, because they already have most of their offensive guys.
As far as trying to find out the deadline for the final Olympic rosters, just while we were talking, a quick search, AI produces early January, so no definitive time right now. But again, that makes sense that it would be a few weeks before the Olympics begin in Italy. Let's shift gears to the net, and Spencer Knight comes up with his sixth career shutout in Calgary, his first as a Blackhawk. He's allowed 3 goals against or fewer in 10 of his 11 starts this season. His .926 save percentage is second among NHL starting goalies, and he's got an NHL best 10.5 goals saved above average. The question coming in, Charlie, was, okay, now it's his crease for the bulk of a season. He's not playing every third or fourth game or fifth game for Bobrovsky. He's going to play 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5 for the Blackhawks. He's answered that bell and then some.
Oh, and how about the bounce back performance from Knight after a really tough one in Winnipeg, where his save percentage went from like .935 to .915 or so. It was such a drastic drop off just on one bad night. And then he follows that up with a 43 save outing in Vancouver, and then a 33 save shutout in Calgary. I mean, when you're talking about, like, we think about great golfers, you see, like, okay, if they have a double or triple bogey, what do they do on the next hole? If they birdie, they par, whatever, it's like, okay, that's a great bounce back. That was what I was most impressed about with Spencer Knight, because everything to the point of the Winnipeg game, it had been beautiful for him. He has a really tough night, an off night. They throw him back in. He bounces back, and, back-to-back incredible performances. And so that was confirming to me that he is just like cool as a cucumber, that he didn't even let the Winnipeg game affect him. He just moved right along to the next game and has been ho-hum ever since, and leads the league in goals saved above expected, save percentages among the league leaders. And now, Pat, after the Arvid Söderblom night or day on Sunday, the Hawks now lead the entire NHL in overall team save percentage. I mean, if there have been very few concerns on the Blackhawks roster this season, but if there are any, goaltending is near the bottom of the list. It's not even a question about how great that they've been.
And the script has really been flipped, because we would not have said that a year ago. And even organizationally, they look great in Rockford. They look great even below the AHL level. They look like they've got, right now a really solid pipeline of high-end goalies. And again, only one can play on any given night.
Drew Commesso, the way he finished last season in Rockford and in the playoffs was terrific, but also Stan Bereznoy, the signing that the Hawks made over the summer, he was out for a little bit because of an injury, returned to the lineup, I think, yesterday for Rockford, And some of the saves he made in the first period, I mean, he made 3 highlight reel saves in the first period alone for Rockford. And so the goaltending pipeline went from a real big question mark a year ago to that is becoming one of their strengths overall in the pipeline.
And credit Arvid too. Like there's an art to being ready every 4th or 5th game. And he was ready to go in Detroit. 44 saves on 45 Red Wing shots. The save he made on Dylan Larkin, where Raymond gets it to Larkin. Larkin seemingly had the whole 4x6 except for the width of a skate in the low end. And he got, I don't know if he got the blade on that puck or the boot on it, but he went left to right. He went right to left to respect Raymond, back to the left side, and made that spectacular left toe save on Larkin, which looked like it, and Dylan, by the way, is having the best start of his NHL career. And I think everybody, including Larkin, thought it was in the net.
Well, and think about the moment that came in the game. The Hawks were up 2-1. If Detroit scores there, it makes it a 2-2 game, and it changes the entirety of the game. But the Hawks end up getting the next 3 goals to move ahead 5-1, and that's all she wrote. Like, Detroit didn't find the back of the net again. So it was that I circled that as like the key moment in the game. Like, that save was a turning point, and they actually added a shot for Detroit. So Arvid finished with 45 saves, which I believe is a career high for Söderblom. And you mentioned too, like, it's an art for a backup goaltender to stay ready. Want to reiterate this: the Hawks did not have a practice on Saturday, and there was no morning skate on Sunday either. So he was getting thrown right into the fire with really no little warm up. And so to perform the way he did and stop 45 of 46 shots, many of those high danger chances was awesome.
So an interesting week for the Blackhawks after playing 6 games in 12 days over 4,300 miles and 4 time zones. They've got a couple of days off. They're off Monday. They're back to work ice with practice on Tuesday. And then they host the New Jersey Devils, Jack Hughes and the Devils, Wednesday night. It's a TNT game. It's the second game in the doubleheader, so it's going to be an 8:52 puck drop. You always got to guard yourself in first game back at the rink at home after a lengthy road trip.
Yeah, I agree. I think what's going in Chicago's favor is that extra day before the game. Like, if they had a game on Tuesday night, that's one of those where you're like, man, I just want to decompress and enjoy some time with the family. But the Hawks are able to do that today on Monday as we record this, and then Tuesday as well. And I actually thought Sunday's game in Detroit was going to be a trap game for the Hawks, where it's like the last game of a road trip. It's a noon start, so guys are already thinking like, I could be home for dinner with my family. You know what I mean? And the Hawks end up performing the way that they did and get a big win. So I expect a similar type of carryover. And a couple other things that I wanted to highlight on this trip. We were talking about Levshunov earlier on the power play. I was bored yesterday and I started crunching some numbers. Levshunov I think he has points in six of his last 7 games now. After he had a multi-point game in Detroit. He's now on pace for 49 points this season. And mind you, he was a healthy scratch for the home opener. So this is an 81 games, not 82. In the last 32 years, Pat, there have been 4 defensemen in the NHL, 4 rookie defensemen that have put up 50 or more points in their rookie season. Lane Hudson, 66. Quinn Hughes, 53. Cale Makar, 50. Moritz Seider, 50. Levshunov is on pace for 49. Now, I do want to preface this by saying, if you look at some of the underlying numbers, Levshunov is playing almost 80% of his starts have come in the offensive zone. So I think after the tough 2-game road trip to start the season, then him being a healthy scratch in Montreal, that's when the Blackhawks started going with 11-7. And I think primarily the motivation was, we have to make sure that Levshunov is playing. but we want him to play the sheltered minutes. And so now that they're giving him far more offensive responsibility, you're starting to see his confidence grow again. And he saw like 2 minutes of penalty kill time in Detroit as well. So they're starting to give him a little bit more defensive responsibility. But the 11-7 specifically has benefited a guy like Levshunov, where he's on pace for 49 goals or 49 points, and they're all assists, by the way. He's still looking for that first point. So I just want to shout that out because it can get lost in, the ups and downs of Levshunov. But from a macro level, he's been performing really well lately. And, if he produces a little bit more and he gets to a 50-plus point pace, only four rookie defensemen in the last 32 years have done that, 50-plus points in a season.
Yeah, and they are tremendous. That's a tremendous list of defensemen. Okay, we're talking about Levshunov. We're going to talk about another defenseman who went to Michigan State, who's going to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame on Monday night in just a second. But I want to just touch on Nazar. When you go 11-7, while it spreads the minutes of a young D core, and I want to say protects them, but it gives Blashill options and Sorensen, who runs the D, options of like who's going tonight. So you can play that player a little bit more. Who's not going? Maybe back off their minutes a little bit. It also puts a stress on your forwards because an injury occurs, a Jason Dickinson goes down, Ilya Mikheyev goes down, a Frank Nazar goes down, all of a sudden, and then God forbid you have a penalty or something like a 5-minute mate, and all of a sudden you've gone from 11 forwards to 10 or 9. We've seen that on a couple occasions already this season. Frank Nazar was a game time decision in Detroit. I'm still trying to decipher what exactly happened in Calgary on Friday night. I saw a little bit of a cross check and then a crumple to the ice. I've heard a report, knee on knee. I didn't necessarily see that. What did you see? What's your feeling right now of like, it doesn't seem like it's serious. If it was, he wouldn't have been on the ice for warm up. That may have been just to give him the opportunity to be back in his hometown and kind of signal and say hi and smile and sign some autographs to family and friends that gathered for him. Your thoughts on kind of the Nazar situation, and then with this schedule this week of only Wednesday and Saturday, like, is that an opportunity that if you rest him Wednesday, he gets a full week off?
Yeah. So I saw the cross check by Joel Farabee in real time, and I thought that it looked like the cross check came in an area where there's no padding, like right above the girdle and underneath the shoulder pads, like how it goes down to the mid chest area. And so when I saw that, I'm like, okay, it's got to maybe be like a rib or whatever. Yep. But then the way I was kind of like dissecting the video, it also looked like he fell awkwardly, like his left leg kind of buckled a little bit. And so I don't know exactly what the injury is. I just know that the Hawks really dodged a bullet because it didn't look great when he was leaving. And that's a guy that is extremely competitive. And so you knew that if he wasn't returning in the game, that's probably not a good sign. And the fact that he was a game time decision on Sunday in Detroit was like a sigh of relief to Chicago fans that it's not like a longer term injury. And so I liked the decision to hold him out of the Detroit game, even if it was really close. Like if it was a playoff game, he probably maybe would have played. Like maybe it was one of those situations. But because of the compact schedule and because of the extra days between, the Sunday game, the Wednesday, and then the next game not being until Saturday, kind of like the Jason Dickinson one, like better to just be safe than sorry, taking a few extra days to heal it properly. And, credit to the Blackhawks, how, they really didn't skip a beat. And to piggyback off of your thought about going 11-7 and putting the strain on the forwards, at one point in the Calgary game, the Hawks were down to 9 forwards because Frank Nazar was gone. Then you had Colton Dach and Nick Foligno drop the gloves. So they were both in the penalty box. The Hawks were down to essentially 3 lines. And so, but those are one of those, the guys will tell you, those are one of those penalties or situations where you're like, we're happy to go shorthanded because it fueled the identity of what this team is going to be, and it's sticking up for each other. I remember the Hawks released their first episode of the Every Shift recently, and they had a behind the scenes footage of Jeff Blashill going into the Blackhawks locker room during, I think it was the first or second intermission. It was the intermission right after Foligno dropped the gloves, and Blashill announced to the room, he said, "I don't expect it to be Nick every night, but that was great job by Nick, but I don't." And now we've seen Louis Crevier jump in for Frank Nazar earlier in the season. Alex Vlasic, Colton Dock, Foligno obviously did it. And hey, credit to Nick Foligno, by the way, because he's a savvy veteran. So he recognized what was happening in Calgary, where they targeted Frank Nazar, Joel Farabee cross-check. It eliminated him from the game. Mackenzie Weegar took a run at Oliver Moore, and that's what set off Alex Vlasic to drop the gloves with Weegar. But Foligno saw what was happening. They're like, you're going after our young guys. Well, I'm going to make your guys uncomfortable now. That's usually what you do as a veteran. If you want to start to get even, sure, you can drop the gloves with whoever is making those hits, but usually it's not a fair trade-off. Right. It's like enforcer versus enforcer. So you're like, all right, if you're going to go after our young guys, what did Nick Foligno do? He goes, takes a clean run at Zane Parekh, which, by the way, he is week to week with an injury. It was very innocent looking, so I don't know exactly what happened. He also lays a hit on Connor Zary in the same shift, and Foligno goes to the bench. He's skating off at the end of his shift. Nazem Kadri goes over to skate up to Foligno to kind of like send a message, and Foligno's ready to drop the gloves right there, and then Kadri skates away, and Foligno looks at him like, okay, what was that? Well, then that was when Hanley comes in and ends up dropping the gloves. But Foligno, if you remember, Pat, he also did this 2 years ago. It was Connor Bedard's rookie season in New Jersey when Bedard broke his jaw on the Brendan Smith hit. Yeah. If you go watch that game, right after that hit, Foligno started taking runs at Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. So he's smart when it comes to that, where he's like, you don't touch our guys. If you're going to hit our guys, we're going to make your guys uncomfortable.
He broke his hand.
Correct. Yes.
In a fight.
In a fight, yes, but I can't remember if it was immediately after.
I thought it was that game, but I could be wrong.
No, you're right. It is that game, but there were also shifts where he was like I think Nico Hischier like left the game like in a ended up maybe returning, but that's one of those things that it's like, okay, if you're gonna do that to our young players, we're gonna make your guys uncomfortable. And credit to Foligno because he also did it cleanly, like within the confines of a hockey game, not just I'm just gonna go run around and take cheap shots.
All right, well, let's wrap up this podcast with a little discussion about Duncan Keith. He'll be inducted into the Hall of Fame on Monday night in Toronto. He changed the way the defensive role in the National Hockey League was played, where normally defensemen would retreat and skate backwards and try to defend and have the offensive player come to them. He took a different approach. He would surf and go towards the offensive player and go at them and close the gap. So much so that I'm sitting there at Fifth Third Arena watching one of the training camp practices, and Blashill had the D-men in the neutral zone, and basically the back of their skates would touch the blue line, their blue line, and then they would go forward, surf forward towards the oncoming offensive players. And Tony Granata says to me, the Duncan Keith drill. At Wisconsin, and I'm sure in other hockey arenas across North America and at every level, they call it the Duncan Keith drill because of him revolutionizing the position and the way he went at it. And the one other thing I'll always remember is his stamina. We talk about how much more a Stanley Cup playoff game is versus your run-of-the-mill Wednesday NHL regular season game. And depending on who you talk to, a player will say to me, it's like 2 times as hard as a regular season game. I've heard many say 3 times as hard. Well, you start factoring in the 150 games that Duncan Keith played, and you times that by 3, and then you factor in the overtimes and the amount of ice time he was playing, it's hard to fathom the hard minutes that guy endured for this franchise. And I'll never forget in 2015, after one of the triple overtime games, friend of the podcast, the show of the Blackhawks, CM Punk, said to me, I texted him, and it was one of those insane minutes that Duncan Keith played en route to winning the Conn Smythe. And he said, what an unbelievable performance, what have you. And Duncan just texted back, I'm not tired yet. And I mean, that to me, in a nutshell, is Duncan Keith.
I mean, the minutes that he logged, the 2015 Stanley Cup final run, where it was the third of the 3, the amount of postseason games that Duncan Keith and the Blackhawks had already accrued to that point, for him to perform the way he did in that 2015 Stanley Cup run, that was maybe the best defensive performance I've ever seen in my lifetime from a single defenseman. Given the minutes that he ate, the offense and defensive impact, he was the unanimous Conn Smythe Trophy winner. I remember being in the building at the United Center. Gary Bettman comes out, or they're getting ready to hand out the Conn Smythe Trophy, and all 22,000+ in the arena were already saying Keith because they already knew that he was going to be the guy to get the Conn Smythe. Like, that's how good he was. And two Norris trophies as well. I mean, he's one of the best defensemen, of the last 20 years in the entire NHL, one of the best defensemen all time. And I don't think I ever left the Blackhawks game watching Duncan Keith where his stick was like at his legs, where he was trying to puff for air. Like, he was just ready to go for another 30 minutes. And so, boy, congratulations to Duncan. And man, I miss watching him play. You mentioned the Duncan Keith drill. It almost reminds me of like how the peanut punch now is like the Charles Tillman trademark. Like, that is like Duncan Keith. Like, when one of your legacies in the NHL is changing the way people play, you've made your mark on the league.
And to that point, you mentioned the Conn Smythe Trophy. Do you know that every defenseman that has won the Conn Smythe Trophy has ended up in the Hall of Fame? And I only have the list and there are 2 active players, and I'll tell you who they are. But just Scott Stevens, Nick Lindstrom, Scott Niedermayer, Duncan Keith, all Conn Smythe Trophy winners, all in the Hall of Fame. If you go back, Bobby Orr's in that list. And the 2 currently that have both won Conn Smythes are Victor Hedman and Cale Makar. And I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, they're on their way to the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. So you win a Conn Smythe as a defenseman, you're going to be enshrined in Toronto.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at this because I was reminded of this. Duncan Keith scored 3 goals in the 2015 Stanley Cup run. All 3 of those goals were the game winner. Wow. It was an overtime in Nashville. It was a game winner. I think it was, it was game 1 against Nashville. It was the last game, the double overtime game where he, did the thing with the hand. And then it was, of course, game 6 to clinch it. So epic.
Epic. All right, that's going to do it for this epic edition of the Blackhawks Breakaway Podcast. For Charlie Roumeliotis, I'm Pat Boyle. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will catch you next time.